And we're delighted to welcome you back to the starting lineup. Great having you with us. Starting lineup's brought to you by Play It Again Sports in the Fremont Shopping Center, Battlefield and Fremont, Springfield, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville with two routes. That's what they call their branches, is routes. One's adjacent to Highland Springs, and the other is in Rogersville itself. By Swing Right Golf, where you can have a lot of fun, folks, with a lot of sports. All that Swing Right Golf is on South Campbell, a little bit north of Nixa. And by Marshfield Chevrolet at the I-44 exit, a couple of left turns, and you cross over onto the north side of I-44. You're on the outer road, and you're driving right into Marshfield Chevrolet, where you had some great deals. Ned Reynolds.
Scott Puryear.
Art Hains.
Good morning, Arthur.
Morning, guys.
Ready to talk some Evangel, Valor, football, and athletics, because we have the guy of many hats on with us. He is the head football coach and the director of athletics at Evangel, Mr. Chuck Hepola. Chuck, good morning.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Always great to be with you in the morning.
You betcha. And we have the coach hat on this morning for the most part, right?
Yep, pretty much. Season's about to crank up. Got a high school team camp going on campus, literally right now, and so it's and I'll tell you what, you can't ask for better weather. I've got three new coaches on my staff that are from outside Missouri, and I said, hey, listen, this cool weather right now that we've got is not.
Yeah, don't get used to it. Yeah,
don't get used to it. This is not what it's normally like. So,
can we get a sign that we can put on your door handle outside your office that says AD office hours now open, and you can just turn it around and say, I'm the football coach on the other side or something?
Yeah, that would be nice. That'd be nice. Yeah, just get that thing turned around and It'd be good, because sometimes even in both jobs you like to just flip it the other way, so you're not having to deal with what you're having to deal with. So, not that there's a lot of negative things. I just enjoy what I do, but there's a lot involved in both of these jobs.
And certainly with the football end of it too, because don't look now, but it's just about 1 month, and the Valor will be playing football. How are you tailoring your drills for that?
Yeah, so we've got some guys that are local that are lifting. Unfortunately, our level of football, we can't scholarship in the summer like the bigger schools can. So that means a lot of guys end up having to go home and probably do a little work. But they're also working out. But we bring them in the summer here for OTAs, organized team activities, and our strength coach will lift them and we'll actually max in the summertime. So really, that maxing is just basically proving that they've been lifting. And of course, when you play college football and college sports, I mean, you're not having to beg guys to lift. Trust me. I mean, they know what it takes to be able to do that. And then, then we had some practices with them, and some installs and so forth. And because ironically, the NAIA level, you can actually practice all summer if you wanted to, but nobody really has a budget to be able to do that. And so then our guys will report on Friday, August 7th, and then we'll get rolling. And but those OTAs are really critical too, because what we do is we have them go through financial registration. They get physicals. We lift them. We meet. We have local churches that feed us. So really, our guys, it's really good for them to get everything knocked out. So when they report, they got pretty much everything taken care of. So it's just football until school starts, and then when school starts, it's academics and football.
Arthur?
So, Chuck, about the two hats, how difficult is that to, being a head football coach is a full-time job, and then administer the other sports too? How much is involved in that, and how much do you delegate to the coaches themselves?
Yeah, it's it's tough, because there is a lot with both of those jobs. I mean, they're large. These are not just small jobs. There's large jobs, and so I've got really good staff on both ends. Jeremy DeSoto, my assistant head coach, defensive coordinator, has been with me here the whole time, and so he has a really good idea of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so there's a lot of stuff that will get delegated to him at times, and then. On the AD side, I have a chief of staff for athletics assistant AD, Brandon Staley, who played for me and also coached under my staff. And then when the Dr. McDonald was looking for a track coach, I told Dr. McDonald, I said, I got the perfect track coach for you to lose I'll hurt losing him from football. And then obviously you've seen what he's done in track. He's done a super job. But there's a lot of things that he does, on the administrative side to be able to help me. So to be able to do that, you have to really have great staff on both ends. And then I've got others that do their jobs as well, that on the administrative side and the athletic side that are helping us. And so without them, it'd been impossible to do this because there's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. And, for these jobs, without that help, you'd need 30 hours a day and 10 hours a week or 10 days a week, and that's not possible. So,
Chuck, is this year 4 for KCAC football membership for you guys?
Yeah, somebody asked me that the other day. I think 23, 24, 25. Yep. Yeah, this would be our 4th year in the KCAC. So, yeah, absolutely.
Looking back at that decision to make that move, you guys have had a lot of success in there. Your margin for error, it seems like, from a national playoff perspective, is thinner than it was before. Have you guys addressed that? And is it something where, as the league reputation gets better, maybe that starts going away and you can go 9-3 or whatever and get a playoff bid? Right now, you probably look at it as 1 or 2 losses is kind of your number, isn't it, at most?
Yeah, and the way the KCAC did, and the reason why we were able to join them and they wanted us to join them is because once we did, that created 2 divisions in football. So what that did was that guaranteed you 2 playoff spots. So since we've been there in the KCAC, we've been able to get 3 teams in the playoffs, and so that's similar to what the Heart did. So really we're able to achieve that. I get a lot of times people ask me questions, what's the difference between the 2 leagues? Really, the KCAC probably from top to bottom is more competitive in regards, in my personal opinion, because the teams there's not a major margin of error between all those teams. The Heart itself has got Grandview. Grandview's won the back-to-back national champions, and so obviously they've got a national champion in there. In fact, Grandview, and I've said this numerous times, but we're the last team. Evangel University is the last team to beat Grandview in the regular season.
Wow.
And so really when you look at that too, I mean, the Heart is a really good really good conference, just like the KCAC, but nobody's beat Grandview in the conference. And so there's the biggest difference. We were the last ones that did, and then obviously we don't get a chance to play them unless we're in the playoffs. Of course, this last year when we're in the playoffs, obviously had that tough loss, especially lined up last play to be able to make a field goal to win. If we actually make that field goal and win, we're playing Grandview the next week.
Wow.
So that's who we would have played. So and we feel like our kids are confident, our coaches are confident because we've played them very, very well. And we felt like we matched up with them pretty well. So no telling what we could have done. Ironically, but that's kind of a nutshell of the conference, man. Both those conferences are beasts, really. From if you took the entire athletic department, in all sports in both those conferences, those are our conferences that we've been in the last few years are all elite conferences. So.
Visiting with Chuck Hepola, head football coach at Evangel University. When do you get a chance to play out of conference?
Yeah, so after this year, this regular season, then we'll get together and discuss, how to set that up. So there's been some proposals, and we'll just see how the conference wants to attack that because that was what Scott brought up is what we experienced in the Heart, and what was happening in the Heart is what people say in the SEC. You start beating up on each other, but then when you got such good teams and you beat up on each other, then when you get in the playoffs, you're not as fresh as some of these other schools because of how good the teams are week in, week out. And so it doesn't mean that we don't want to play people in our conference, but yet what happens is in the polls, you've got to have that respect, and how you get that respect is play people out of conference and then obviously beat them and hopefully beat them. And then when you do, then obviously that's going to impact polls. And so prior to us leaving the Heart, we were actually the ones that submitted that proposal to be able to have the Heart play out of conference. Of course, at that time, we didn't know we were going to be leaving the KCAC. And then, I firmly believe we need to have a similar proposal, kind of like what they're doing in the Heart, and then that way we can play some of these teams. That's why you're seeing Benedictine play Morningside. Benedictine the last 2 years played Morningside the first week of the season, And, the old schedule the Hart had and the current schedule KCAC we had, that's impossible. You can't do it. So we can only play 11 games in the regular season at our level of football. And so, right now we've got 11 games on the schedule, and they are all KCAC, Kessinger and Bissell division.
Arthur?
Chuck, how does the team shape up?
Yeah, really defensively we return I think there's 9 guys out there that have started and played for us significantly. On offense, I was actually thinking about this last night too. We've got 8 to 9 guys that are starting. We got 4 offensive linemen returning, our tight ends returning, receivers returning. Really a couple of receivers that have played significantly for us. We just got to replace quarterback and a 1,000-yard rusher on offense, and we've got some guys that have got some playing time for us. I've got some running backs that can really go, and then our kicker returns, our punter returns, and we've got a deep snapper that was here on OTAs. That man, I haven't had anybody zip it back as good as he has up to this point, and I've set some really good ones. I've had some all-conference guys at that position, so feel really good. But at the end of the day, any sport, any level of football, you got to have a quarterback play, and so that's going to be a critical piece for us to make sure that we get our quarterbacks ready. So
Chuck, you need to get that league thing figured out where you guys can go play OU and make about $1.2 million for the budget. That's what teams do now.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I've experienced that. I was actually talking to my son about this recently. When I was at Nichols, we played. Goodness gracious, my mind went blank on the head coach at Minnesota right now. But the head coach at Minnesota, he was at Western Michigan at the time, and they paid us.
Yeah, Fleck.
Yeah. That's right. And he was the head coach there at Western Michigan. I'm at Nichols, and I think they paid us $425,000, and we went there and beat them. And
they don't like that.
They don't. My son got to go with me on the game, and he was like, "Dad, that is awesome," because he was young and. And, I remember getting on the plane and kind of whispering in his ear and said, hey, we just make about $425,000 beating that team too. So that was a lot of fun, to be able to do that. But the chances of us beating University of Oklahoma right now, here at Evangel are not very good.
Not very good. Well, and what I wanted to ask you is you're familiar with Grandview from your past in that league. We know what the difference is between like a Georgia, a Bama, and a Missouri State all on the same level. What is the difference in NAIA football between a Grandview, a national champion that goes 14-0, and an Evangel? Are there competitive advantages like bigger rosters, facilities? Kind of go into that a little bit because at the big level now it's NIL and can you go buy a team, but that's not happening at your level, correct?
Right. Well, there is some NIL, and it depends on we can do NIL at our level if we did, but choose to do so. But that's at our level. That's not happening very often. I think sometimes the scholarship structure of each university is a little different, and some of that is state funded versus non-state funded, stuff that a school could receive, because most of the NAIA schools, if you look at them, most of them are actually private schools, and so a high percentage of them are not receiving, any money from the state, and so really a lot of them are private entities. So really the overall probably the structure of that roster sizes does matter as well too, because there's a lot of them have very, very large roster sizes. Some of the universities I just mentioned have, can have 180 players, on theirs, and we choose not to do that here at Evangel, and then also the facilities itself, that is, that's another piece as well. Of course, we've got a beautiful facility here, but the one thing I think that we're missing here is obviously an on-campus stadium. And once you get that certainly will entice people to want to be able to come, because and even students. I think you have an on-campus stadium too. That also helps your overall university, because at the end of the day, students want the total. They want the total college experience, and not that they can't buy ours, but they have to at Evangel here. They have to hop in a car and drive to Nixa, and 30 minutes away, 30 minutes back. So if you think about that, that's an hour in the car. and then they've got to choose whether or not they're willing to use a little bit of gas money to do that. And but fortunately, our students have come. We were number 4 in the nation in average and total attendance, and we've been in the top 10 in the nation since we've been here as a staff. And so, but there's a lot of pieces like that matter. And I also would say, sizes of staffs and the big schools. We had an FBS coach that was on our campus here recently, and I was speaking to a group of guys, and it was unbelievable. They were talking about they have 100+ support coaches and support staff, and now obviously the 100 is not coaches, but from the coaches to support staff to staff, it's unbelievable how many they had, and that's. We're not going to have that here, and nobody at our level is ever going to have that, honestly.
Chuck, is there a possibility of buses from campus to Nixa for the students?
Yeah, and we've done those things. We've done all those things and a variety of things with them, and so yeah, absolutely. So like even our players, we bus. So that's why we've done a good job of playing on the road, because really every game's like a road game to us, because our players are always getting on some sort of bus. Whether it be driving to Nixa, driving to Ozarks, which we played in the past, even driving to Parkview, where we played. And then, but yeah, absolutely. And, our campus does a really good job of trying to help students out to be able to do that. And we make, and really the students at the end of the day, part of their, the fees coming here to school, they get in the games free and all those things. So it's, that makes a difference as well.
Chuck, identification is such a key part of any kind of athletics. This doesn't affect Evangel so much because your crowds have been pretty good. But when the public looks at it, they want to know, hey, are these guys going on anywhere? The question is, has the KCAC sent many or any players into the big-time pro football, anything along those lines?
Oh, yeah. We've got, my running back last year, Eric Williams, got invited to a pro day there at Mizzou. So, he was reached out by NFL and so he was at the pro day, and we've had here at Evangel, we've had players that have gone on to play. I mean, obviously Derek Clark Clark actually passed away recently, but we've got players that have done that, but every I wouldn't say every level, but Benedictine's had some players here lately in the Heart, and then the KCAC, you'll have a player here or two that because if you're good enough, at every level, and I'll have players sometimes say, hey, that we're recruiting, hey, I want to go here because I want a chance to play at the next level. And I usually tell them, hey, listen, if you're as good as you think you are in your mind and all that in your ability, they'll find you. The NFL, they're not stupid. They know how to find the best players, and no matter what that level is. Actually, if you look at most NFL rosters, a heavy percentage of the players on those rosters are at times FCS and Division II players, and all that are, you look at those are guys that because I've coached at every level, and there are guys at every level that I've been at the university that I felt like they should be playing at a higher level, and then there's some that are where they're supposed to be. So every school I've been at, I've looked at and I was like, man, that guy is really awfully special, So, and I had an All-American punter for years here that I was every summer. I was like, please, I hope some of these schools don't find. But he was a Division I punter, All-American punter for us, and it just shows that recruiting is not an exact science, because you're going to miss out on some players that probably should be playing at higher levels.
Well, if he could just remember to actually punt the football, he'd have been good at OU last playoff season too against Bama. Chuck, wanted to ask you before we let you go, some names, local kids that'll be in the spotlight for you guys when you start the season here August 7th with your drills.
Yeah, let me reflect on that. One of the offensive linemen that I talked about, Jodon Kirkland, he's from Branson. I'm trying to think of all of our local players here in regards to that. Starting center, Dom Dawson, he should be an All-American. He's a Mount Vernon kid. Lucas Higgins, he's a left tackle for us. He's a Nevada kid. Brock Lyle is from Rolla, so he's our receiver that is really dynamic, for us. And Deacon Peterson's from Coweta, Oklahoma. We kind of consider, the Oklahoma area there, as close as it is, fairly local for us as well. But the Springfield area here, Draven Van Gilder, he's a Joplin kid. He's an all-conference, linebacker for us. Talon Stevens is another linebacker. Is an all-conference kid for us, but he's Harrisonville, Arkansas, which is fairly local as well. I mean, you just cross right there over the border there from Branson, and you'll be in there. But and we've got them from all over. Colton Brosini, our punter, is a local kid. Cody Voicey, who was a freshman last year, our kicker, and had an outstanding season. Probably should have been Special Teams Player of the Year as a freshman. He's a Stratford kid, and so. We have really. I'm very proud of the fact that we've won a lot of games over the years with a lot of local players, and our attitude is always to try to look local first. And we're going to get to recruiting to where we can get to in a tank of gas. And if we can get there in a tank of gas, they can get to us in a tank of gas. Their family can get to a tank of gas, and then they really don't leave. A lot of times you'll get guys that get homesick. And the homesickness really comes from sometimes a person living a long ways away. And so we try to spend our time in this little area just trying to recruit as many as possible. But majority of our players here on our team are Missouri kids.
Chuck, that alarm that went off was for an AD meeting apparently at 8:15. You're already 6 minutes late. So
I know.
We're going to let you go. We'll touch base right before the season if we can too as well.
You bet it. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about Evangel football, and we thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks, Chuck.
He is Chuck Hepola, head football coach of Evangel University. Back in a second. And you're home for the St. Louis Cardinals as well, and the Redbirds will be on the air this afternoon. Game time is about 4:15, 4:30. That's right. It's a rather odd time, but this is also an odd game. It's a makeup from a rainout, and the Cardinals will play the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's this afternoon at Busch Stadium. One game only, and then back to the regular schedule, Cincinnati Reds. Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Puryear.
Art Hains.
Art, big day for the Royals and Salvy Perez yesterday. They not only sweep the Giants, but he ties King George for the all-time home run record for a career there at KC. Is that a fitting?
Got it done.
Yeah. Is that? Do you think he'll stop now and quit hitting home runs out of deference to George or not?
I think not. Yeah. He had 2 at-bats after he tied the record, and he was trying to break it. So, now they go on the road. But it was neat that he did that at home. That was a special moment.
I wanted to ask you, in the grand hierarchy of Royals greats, where does Salvy fit in? Tell us your top 5.
Well, Brett, obviously, too soon to place Witt as to where he'll be. You got, of course, Alex Gordon, who was there for a long time. I think Salvy's second probably at this point.
Art, in your perspective, would you put Frank White in there?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd probably be third. I mean, he and Brett are the 2 that have their jerseys retired, and Salvador will be as well. But, those would be top 3. And, you got Alex Gordon, Amos Otis, Mike Sweeney.
What about Saberhagen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, then pitchers, Saberhagen, sure, yeah.
Who's number 2 on the pitcher list in your eyes?
Guy from Morningside. Now I've forgotten his Splittorf.
Paul Splittorf.
Yeah. He'd be
he's their all-time winningest pitcher.
Yeah. So, do we think that Tony Vitello will get a year 2 with the Giants, or do you think this has been an experiment that's not worked?
Well, it's not worked. And I don't know. I don't know what the Giants' thoughts would be, but, the Royals got a better record than they do now, so that's not good.
Well, I think one of the things perhaps in Vitello's favor is Buster Posey, the general manager, who probably identifies very strongly with guys who did well in college because he did. But, again, you have to take a look at the team, and it's not a very good team at all. In fact,
I think he probably gets another year.
I do, too.
It'd be hard to bring in an experiment like that and just call it done after 1 year, with a guy not learning the ropes and having more than one season to do so with that jump. But, it also might keep other teams from trying the same thing, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, because this guy was extremely successful at the college level. Mm-hmm. So, but, yeah, he deserves more than 1 year to try to make it work.
We were talking that it just seems like, and it's just fitting for this entire season, but they just can't get everybody there at one time. Now you got Bobby Witt Jr. on the IL with the back problem, and you may get Garcia back, and now Vinny P's starting to hit, but you still don't have your full complement of guys, and especially on the pitching side as well.
Well, absolutely. It's just held together with Band-Aids and baling wire right now, but they had a great homestand going 5-1. However, they're about to run into a buzzsaw when they go to Detroit.
Yep.
And we were talking that the Tigers are going to be one of the very intriguing cases of trade deadline, do you or don't you? Because that in that division and in the American League, as tight as the wild card chase is among everybody, that's all kind of mediocre. You don't want to give up now, but you at the same time you don't want to let your guy walk and get nothing for him either. Well, what would you do if you're the Tigers?
Well, I mean, they're 6 games out of first place. So, they're playing very well since the 1st of June. They and the Red Sox have the best records in the American League. I think they may just go for it.
You think they keep Skubal?
I think they might.
And of course the talk was that, the Yankees are always looking to deal. Would they trade a Cam Schlittler for a Skubal? Where if Detroit then gets a young guy that's under control by them for the next, 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, would that make sense? But the other team,
well, it might. That's a huge name, Cam Schlitter. But I'd do it for that, for a guy that's in a last year of his contract. Sure.
Arthur, were you familiar with the pitcher, the young pitcher who the Royals traded to Houston yesterday, Max Martin?
Nope.
Never played out of A-ball, low A, high A, and he's been around for about a year and a half. UC Irvine product, big kid, 6'5", but apparently the Astros saw something in him and were willing to give up a veteran pitcher such as Nate Pearson is.
And Nate Pearson's a hard thrower, but he'd been DFA'd by Houston. So, at this point, throw a life raft out there, and he may be a guy that'll fit in as a rotation piece, in the back end of the bullpen.
Hey, let's take a break. We hope we have JVT on the other side. They got a few bills to pay here, so let's take our break and come back and talk college football and more.
This is the starting lineup. Don't go away. And we are very pleased that you're with us on the starting lineup, and welcome back. Starting lineup brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville, by Swing Right Golf, and by Marshfield Chevrolet. I'm Ned Reynolds, along with
Scott Puryear.
And Art Hains.
And one of our favorite guests with the VSiN Network, our great affiliate that we're on 24/7 here on our 102.1 The One, is JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel. You hear him pretty much any time during the day. Somebody's got him on as a guest, but we love his show with Stormy at 1 o'clock on Money Moves there. We welcome in JVT. Good morning.
Morning, guys. Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me, as always. I think it's football season, right? Media days in college football have started up. We're talking a lot of football previews over at VSiN, so I think we're here. It's all downhill from here.
And are we pulling an all-nighter again tonight to visit with us? That's pretty much your nature with us, isn't it?
I got up, what time did I get up today? About 3:45 Pacific time. I got a lot of writing to finish. We do get driven pretty hard if we're writing over at the network. Our deadline for our college football guide's coming up on Friday. I've got 2 conferences, the Mountain West and the SEC. So I've got all of the stuff. I know you guys are recording video-wise. I'm writing up Wyoming right now and finishing up the Mountain West, and I'll be done with the SEC by tomorrow.
That looked like the Phil Steele book you just popped up there, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's a very good resource for your audience that doesn't know. Good for in terms of rosters, things like that. Very good. You still want to do a little bit of research on the side as well. And I went to a Mountain West school, UNLV. I cover it on the side. I work for an ESPN affiliate out here in Las Vegas as well, part-time. So I do have an affinity for the conference, so that kind of helps the knowledge as well.
We have Phil Steele on once a year, every summer, and just a great interview. And SEC Media Days going on right now down in Tampa. How much attention do you pay to what goes on there in terms of writing the previews for your betting guide?
A lot. You want to hear certain things. They don't really say that much, but they are asked questions about certain position battles, or I think it's actually somewhat fitting too, or at least somewhat telling, I should say, actually. Who they bring to media days, right? If you have a team that's kind of got somewhat of a quarterback battle going into fall camp, if they're not bringing a quarterback with them, then you know that it really hasn't been settled for the most part. We had Dabo Swinney at ACC Media Days announce that he has his starting quarterback, things like that. So I think those do matter. For certain teams, you kind of understand what's happening. Obviously, Gunnar Stockton was brought in for the Georgia Bulldogs. They're going to have a strong season. I'm really high on them, but I think you're definitely paying attention for the most part to media days.
John, Mr. Steele has a pretty good price tag on the Phil Steele football preview. Now, your one, the one here with VSiN, is there a charge for it, and is it tangible, or is it only on the internet?
It's on the internet. You can go to VSiN.com/subscribe, sign up. And as I always like to say, this is in the context of not just the guide. It's everything we do, plus, of course, the guide is part of the special. And the package gets you signed up all the way through the Super Bowl. So
excellent.
As I always like to remind people, a lot of sports start between now and the start of the end of the Super Bowl, right? We get the beginning of the NBA season, college basketball, the hockey leagues as well. You get our bowl guide previews, things like that. So while the college football betting guide is one of the premier things that we're going to advertise, I always like to remind people that part of that package is everything we do at the network, and we do a lot. And it includes our tools, too, up online. One of the things I think is the most underrated thing that we do that I've actually told our bosses we should promote a little bit more, we have some great player prop projection tools for you that you can use if you like fantasy or if you just like betting player props as well. There's a lot up on the website. So outside of just the guide, there is a ton of stuff up there, and I would very much recommend checking it out up at VSiN.com/subscribe.
Jonathan, how do you think North Dakota State's going to do in the Mountain West?
I am really excited, actually, to see what this team is going to bring in terms of their physicality and the way that they're playing. They are, from an odds perspective, depending on where you look, either a co-favorite to win the league or the second choice, depending on some variance of the juice to win this whole thing. I think I have some questions. So the format for our college guide is same thing with our NFL guide for those who aren't familiar. For our previews, we call them the 3 burning questions about each one of these teams. And for North Dakota State, I think the 3 questions for me were, how do they handle being a favorite at a higher level? You go back to last year, they closed as a 30-point favorite in 6 of their games last year. I mean, that is wiping the floor with the competition and really being able to do what you want against that competition. The lack of talent from the transfer portal, I think, is a big question for the Bison. They had 29 high school players and only 9 transfers come in this class that they brought in 2026. Only 3 of them played at a Power 4 level last season, and one of them was a punter from Minnesota. So they're really still kind of going in on this, hey, we're bringing in freshmen, we're developing them. How does that fare when you're talking about some of these programs, like UNLV, for example, who's relying on a lot of former high-end prospects coming in? Jackson Arnold, the projected starter quarterback, is a former 5-star guy that played at Auburn and Oklahoma. You go down the list of these teams that are asking dudes from power conferences to take a step down and play for them. North Dakota State's not doing that. And then, of course, the run of quarterback development is going to be really interesting. When Cole Payton got drafted by the Eagles in this last draft, he was 178th pick. That was the 5th Bison starting quarterback in the last 11 years to get drafted in the NFL. Well, now you really kind of got to build this up with Nathan Hayes, who's taken over the job. So there's a lot of interesting questions I think I have about North Dakota. I think they're going to be good, but their schedule's really tough. They actually have to take on all of the big boys, and they have to go on the road as well for all of them. They have to go to UNLV. They have to go to New Mexico. They have to go to Hawaii. Those are really tough spots to draw your first time stepping up in competition. I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to fall flat on their face, but I do think the market's a little too bullish on what they're going to be in terms of putting them as maybe even a co-favorite in the league.
JVT, good luck with your alma mater with Jackson Arnold. I'm a lifelong OU fan. If he can just remember what color his team's jerseys are as opposed to the other one, you guys will be okay. Wanted to ask you about the SEC, and I was driving in this morning, and I can't remember who was talking about Florida, from the SEC media days, but they were kind of going through Florida's schedule with the new regime down there, and they said, they got a road game at Mizzou, they should be okay there. Wait a minute. Missouri Tigers, are they kind of under the radar? And I know Drinkowitz hasn't won the big one or won many big ones at all, but where do you see Mizzou fitting in your SEC preview in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I haven't gotten to Mizzou yet, but looking at it like from an outside-in standpoint, I would think that I'm with you in the sense of the Tigers have been a pretty consistent program out there over the last couple of years. And to assume that a program like Florida, who, one of the ways that I put it when I wrote up Florida was like, can USF win the SEC? When you were looking at this team, can they actually win this thing? Because, who's going to lead this? Actually, not USF, excuse me. Who's going to lead this offense for them? I got confused with another program out there. But I think Florida's got a lot to rebuild here, right? Bringing in guys from Georgia Tech and whatnot. So the other part about this is for Missouri, the consistent nature of this program in the SEC and where they have been, I think that would mean a little bit more than a program like Florida who is rebuilding. I know Summerall's done a really good job everywhere he's gone. I called him in the guide college football King Midas, because everything he touched in his first 2 stops has turned into gold. But I do think Missouri is kind of slept on because it's not one of those general power programs. I think injuries were a little bit a part of last year, but I think that they're coming back with a pretty strong group, and some positive health news at the SEC Media Days, too, I think has them pointing upward for sure in the SEC.
I'm glad you mentioned that positive news, too, Chris. That involves Ahmad Hardy, who is a really top-notch running back, and that makes a big deal. You guys cover him in the football perspective.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, all of that is going to matter here for this group, and I think that that's part of a lot of these teams. You go through the SEC, injury, health, there's a lot of teams that really got derailed. One of the teams invoking, the Mountain West, health was a big part of what they did at Air Force, right, and why they fell down the stretch, especially their offense. So all of these sort of things are really going to matter, and that I think is a really, really big deal. It's hard to quantify one single skill position player on what he means for a win total or anything like that. But a player of that level, I think, is massively important for a team like Missouri, for sure.
Jonathan, how bullish are you on Miami?
I'm kind of really high on Miami. It's funny because I think you can make the argument that Darian Mensah comes in and makes them better. I know Carson Beck was really, really good, but he kind of had those rumors about the dead arm, right? I think it was Tommy John surgery that he had to undergo, and there wasn't as much zip on that thing. And now you get Mensah, who's a little bit better in terms of the ability to stretch plays out in the pocket. He's not exactly a dual threat, but he can at least move and avoid pressure, find the ball downfield. I think he's a little bit more explosive with his arm. And then you've got guys like Tony still at the skill position group that are going to be really good. It is hard not to like them. They are the odds-on favorite to win the ACC, I think, for a very good reason. The ACC is not particularly deep, it would seem. There's a lot of bad programs there. So I would expect that it would be a massive disappointment for them, who are about a minus 150 favorite to win that thing, to not win the ACC this season. But it's hard not to really like them. And Cristobal kind of proved, look, I'm not one that really likes Mario Cristobal a lot. I always like to use the phrase, he doesn't add wins on the margins. I think sometimes his decision-making and game management, it leaves a lot to be desired. But he can coach an offensive line, and that group is going to be really good again, too. And I think this is one of the better programs in the country for sure. And one of the winners in the portal when you get a guy like Mensah to come out.
Visiting with JVT of the VSiN Network. And when you write the SEC preview, it's just different than everybody else. Because, if you write the Big Ten, you start with Ohio State and work your way down. Where do you start in the SEC? Because it just seems like there's about 5 or 6 schools, especially in this transfer portal era, that could rise up and be the team. How do you handicap the top of the SEC this year?
So for me, I've really kind of fallen in love with Georgia the more I've gotten done with the SEC, and I just got done with Georgia the other day too, writing up the full preview. First off, Gunnar Stockton was actually really solid as a quarterback last year for them. Kind of bailed them out a lot of the times. One of the things that I dug up here. The Bulldogs were 79th, or at least in the 79th percentile, I should say, in late down success rate, despite being 56th percentile in average third down distance. So Gunnar Stockton was really kind of bailing them out a lot. He put up some really good numbers in the fourth quarter, completed 83% of his passes for 8.5 yards per attempt, scored a total of 9 touchdowns in those games, didn't turn the ball over in the fourth quarter. He has been really, really solid. And I think this team has a lot of good returning production. They didn't run the ball particularly well last year, but the offensive line looks really good, and it has a really good stud interior, especially with Bobo at center. Running back production is back. I think the big question you have about Georgia is, will they be able to rush the passer? The kid they brought in from Auburn tore his ACL in the spring, so he is not going to be able to help them out. They've got some young guys that they're asking to really help improve a defense that only had 20 sacks last year and couldn't really rush the passer. But I think this team's got everything. So I like Georgia at the top. And shockingly enough, this depends on quarterback and what's going to happen here. But Alabama, I think that might surprise some people, right? Oh, no, Alabama might be good. But I do think that when you look at this, if Keelan Russell hits, I think this team's going to be really good because I think Russell adds a little bit more of a rushing dynamic that Simpson did not last year. Their own running game was abysmal a season ago, but that can only get better because it was not very efficient. And then defensively, this group's got a lot coming back from a team that was very, very good last year on defense. So I think they're sneakily a national championship contender. I think a lot of it has to do with Keelan Russell and whether or not he is going to hit. But I think those two. But for me, my pick for the winner is going to be Georgia, and I have a tip on Gunnar Stockton to win the Heisman at 20-1.
John, in your opinion, and this is strictly your opinion, DeBoer's coming off a terrible football game to end the season last year, 38-3, I think the final score was. Is he on any kind of a hot seat in Tuscaloosa?
I would assume yes, just because of the standards that those fans and that program have for themselves. But as somebody who grew up with the program. I always like to say out here in Las Vegas, I'd kill for 9 wins, regularly, and they're in this stretch, right? So, I say this about Penn State too. The grass isn't always greener. We'll see what Campbell does. So I'd always be careful of setting internal expectations a little too high. So I think by nature, just because of what Alabama has expected of itself in the Saban era, there's probably some sort of hot seat there. But I also think that it would be foolish to judge him on that, considering what Indiana did to a lot of teams a season ago. Yeah. And I do think that DeBoer is a pretty good coach, and I think we'll learn that this year too. I mean, the quarterback development for him and his track record has been pretty strong. And if Russell does hit, and this team I think does have some sneaky upside to win a national championship, I wouldn't be surprised if he silences a lot of folks this year, takes advantage of a schedule, and finds themselves with a playoff win again, and maybe even contending for a national championship.
John, do you have a take on Missouri State and its new coach from SMU?
I'll be honest with you, I do not. I have not had a chance to look at Missouri State at all. You guys would be the one that would have to educate me on what's going on with that program for sure.
Well, we know you got to get back to writing. You're about to get yelled at by the managing editor probably as you take it down to deadline. Wanted to ask you before we go, Arkansas, they're on the podium today at the SEC Media Days. Got to be picked, I would think, in that 14, 15, 16 range when it comes to the poll. Should Arkansas fans have hope, or should they just get ready for John Calipari and what could be a very special basketball year?
Yeah, so to your point, dead last in the odds in almost every single book for Arkansas to win the SEC, 250 to 1 out there for them to win the conference. So not much expected in the SEC, but from what I understand, I was listening to a podcast for one of their writers the other day. It sounds like this change in offense might be pretty solid for them, and that they're going to have actually something with some really good upside, a little bit more of a modern style here, and defensively too. I think obviously they want to be a lot better than where they were a season ago. So I think this seems to be a program that's got some of the upward buy signs, and I think it also depends on some of these other teams that are kind of in their range, right? Vandy, Kentucky, Mississippi State. I think Kentucky's probably going to improve quite a bit here with what they did in the transfer portal, so maybe they can't leap them. But I do think there's a reality in which they finish above a team like Vandy or Mississippi State, but I don't know how much higher, I should say, they're going to finish in the standings of the SEC.
Very good. We always appreciate your time. We know you get up early to talk to us. Check out the VSiN Network, VSiN.com. The VSiN VIP membership is a great deal. College football preview coming out here on August 3rd, right?
Yep, August 3rd, to check it out. And again, we offer everything, so it's all part of the full package that I very much recommend. You get to watch the shows as well, a lot of different stuff, sure, including the new Circus Survivor documentary that is out as well. You can watch up on the website too, so make sure you check it out at VSiN.com.
Very good. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
VSiN Network, that's where we are, folks. We'll take a quick time out on the starting lineup and be right back. We are in the stretch run of our show, and of course, this has been a very good show today. He is, Jonathan Von Tobel is a very, very good correspondent.
All those VSiN guys, they know their stuff. And that's what I tell people is, it's VSiN, it's a gambling network. Well, it is, but it's an information network.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's VSiN, Vegas Sports Information Network in the name. And their website's got great information, their previews, and it goes beyond the odds and things like that. And Art, I was trying to find, and I guess the SEC either doesn't do a preseason poll, but everybody else does. And I found one for 247 Sports that Arkansas is number 16. But the first 7 teams, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee 8, Mizzou 9. I could see any one of those having a special year and being in the SEC title game. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. I mean, that's kind of where Mizzou is stuck in the SEC in the middle. But they could make a move up with a couple of timely wins. Well,
and I think and I remember, I think it was maybe JVT that told us this back at one of the interviews during basketball, is that if you're a partaker in sports gambling, your biggest advantage is betting things like your local team, like Missouri State, because we hear things and find things from the media and, your connections and everything else that the Vegas people don't even know. So, I mean, you may have an advantage when you find out, well, so-and-so has a turned ankle or something like that that's not going to make its way to Vegas and stuff. But
I think there's very little the folks in Vegas don't know.
Yeah. Although, their focus is always going to be, I would guess, kind of tiered, where most of the money's coming in, because probably not a whole lot of money coming in on a Missouri State, Kennesaw State game, but as opposed to Georgia, Bama. But I think there's a way there. And Ned, do you think Mizzou's flying under the radar?
Depends on how much Hardy is able to play, because he is such a key part of their offense. Right now, and I know that Drinkwood says, he's back and fully healthy. There isn't any way he can be. With surgery to remove the bullet from his leg, I just can't see that he'll be that effective. So I'm going to say no, they're not flying under the radar. I think they're probably down there at a lower distance. And they also have a tough schedule.
Yeah.
But the backup running back is very good, too.
Well, he is.
Yeah,
that is true.
The Hardy-Roberts combo is better, as good or better than anybody in the country in terms of a 1-2 punch. I think that, that with a pretty veteran offensive line, they still got Caden Green back for that group. But then Austin Simmons is going to be the wild card, and
that's right.
And that was a kid at Ole Miss, a lefty that Ole Miss was counting on him being their guy.
Didn't you say that the offensive line from Missouri has a vacancy on that side?
The right tackle has re-injured an ankle or something, and that's a concern because Simmons is a lefty. And so that's his backside there. But Drink said they've got guys that they can move over there, if necessary. They got some guys that were, pushing to be a starter anyway. So, yeah, I just think that, they are that whole SEC. I mean, LSU, we don't know what Lane Kiffin's going to do in his first year down there because, he's stockpiled talent. They got the quarterback, from Arizona State, I think, that came in. And,
11.
Yeah, and so, and they're picked 7th. In this bowl.
Don't count on that. They're better than that. And Kiffin will make him. And there's one thing you can bet on: Kiffin will make headlines doing something.
Usually Texas wins the off season every year. They're not winning it this year, and that's kind of surprising me because all you heard was Arch. Well, you're not hearing as much Texas anymore. It seems like.
No,
you're hearing A&M more.
Yeah, with what he's done down there, and then Ole Miss with Chambliss coming back, which we all disagree with the decision. To let him play another year, but it should be fun in that entire top-to-bottom SEC, except for Arkansas. Maybe not as fun.
That's what makes following college football so much fun. Also says that we're out of time. Great having you with us on the Thursday edition of the starting lineup. I'm Ned Reynolds.
Scott Puryear.
Art Hains.
And, folks, we will be right here tomorrow at this very same time. We hope that you're with us. You are invited. Arthur?
See you.